everybody. We are back for another edition of Heart to Heart. For those of you not familiar with me, my name is Elmira. I'm also known as Dr. E. I'm a self care coach, and what I do specifically with self care is help people get over their ex. Hargan from Awakened Heart BQH. We're going to be discussing beyond quantum healing and all kinds of, oh, I think we got you.
Yay.
See, I told you sometimes it's the universe trying to who knows, but I said if we restart it, I think that's going to be the win. I'm like, how are you
I'm
today?
good. How are you doing? Excited to be here.
Yes, awesome. I'm doing quite well. I had a relaxing weekend with it being 4th of July and all of that. Did you do anything for the holiday yourself?
Yeah, we just walked around Manhattan. I didn't do anything earlier, or I didn't do anything later that day, but the morning was really nice.
Cool. Yeah, Manhattan. It's been a while since I've been to New York. Like I haven't been there since, sad to say, it's been like over 10 years, so I need to get back up there.
Yeah, I live in Brooklyn, so I go to the city sometimes, not all the time, but fun when we go.
Awesome. Well, let's hop to it because I know people are excited to hear your story and for you to give us some wisdom. So, my big question is, how did you come to this space of quantum healing? Like, what point in your life led you to say, I need to make a change?
Yeah, so I was actually addicted to heroin and fentanyl for 8 years. And then once I made that decision greater than myself to maintain my sobriety, I actually found Joe Dispenza's work. So I started doing a lot of meditation. I started changing my limiting beliefs. I started doing breath work. I started doing the Wim Hof breath to get through the withdrawal. And then when I finally made that decision to get fully sober, then I was just catapulted into a spiritual awakening. And that's really when I started doing BQH and hypnosis. And then I do divine blueprint activation as well.
Okay, so one of the first things you mentioned was Joe Dispenza. What did that initially feel like? Because you mentioned 8-year addiction. What did it feel like when you were first introduced to Joe Dispenza? Like, was it easy? Was it challenging? What was going on with you?
Something inside of me just knew that that's what I had to do. And it's so beautiful because when you're ready to get sober, then paths are just opened up for you when you're truly, truly ready. And so I started just watching Joe Dispenza interviews, testimonials. I started reading his books. I just went all into Joe Dispenza. I started just meditating he has like smaller 15-minute meditations. So I would
Mm-hmm.
just start that. And I realized that when I would just do these 15-minute meditations, even my triggers were just getting better.
Wow.
Like I always had this thing where I couldn't watch people chew. I couldn't watch people chew.
What? That sounds so weird.
It was like when people would like smack their gum, it would shake me to my core. And I realized that those triggers started to not feel as bad. And then other triggers that I had, like my anxiety was starting to calm itself. Um, I started doing Joe Dispenza's work while I was tapering from methadone. And so, for anybody that doesn't know what methadone is, it's a maintenance program that they put you on when you're getting off of any kind of opiate.
Hmm.
So, I was at this methadone program doing Joe Dispenza's work, tapering myself off of methadone so that I could get off of opiates. And meditation slowly just started giving me the tools that I needed to make those positive changes in my life. And then I started doing longer meditations, and I would just give myself the space to cry my eyes out because I'd never felt my emotions before. And so I would do like 1 hour, 2 hour meditations of just crying my eyes out, like releasing that emotion that I had stored in my body from when I was 15 years old and had no idea I was still holding on to it.
Could you, that's quite remarkable to me. Like, could you specifically feel, oh, I've been holding on to this for a while, and you said, oh my goodness, this has been here for years. Let me let it go. Could you feel it to that specificity?
Yeah, a lot of times it would just be emotion being released where maybe it wasn't um, to a specific place, but then there were absolutely other moments where a lot of times when I had to heal something in my past, it almost felt like I would astral project to that place and give
Mm-hmm.
the love that I always needed in that moment. So these opportunities were coming to me to be healed. So I would go back to these places when I was a child. I would go back to these places when I was 15 years old and I was crying my eyes out and couldn't handle my emotions. And so it was really important for me to be able to give the love to myself that I felt like I never had in that moment.
What it sounds like to me is you mentioned astral projecting to that moment, a previous time in your life. It's almost like you relived that moment. Would you say that was what it was, or give me some more details?
Yeah, it felt like I was just returning to that moment. So you could say I was just reliving that moment. So
Hmm.
I would be just giving myself the space for whatever needed to come to the surface to be healed. And it's almost like I would get this vision of like, okay, this is the space we need to go to next. And I just put so much faith and love into my higher self, and I knew my higher self had a plan for my healing. And so I would, when these visions were shown to me, I would go back to each place that I knew needed to be deeply healed, to give myself the love that I needed. So yeah, it was almost like I was reliving the experience so that I could really infuse it with the love that I needed.
Would you say, because I know you currently help clients go through a similar process as you, would you say that particular process of reliving and showing yourself the love you needed in that moment is something that a lot of people require, or was it just something you needed to experience?
Yeah, I think especially in BQH sessions, this is something that it happens pretty often, but there's a lot that can happen in one BQH session. So
And just for clarity, can you tell everybody what is BQH? Because some people are like, you're talking about BQH and I don't even know what this is.
yeah, so BQH is a light hypnosis, or you could see it as a trance. We really just try to get past the analytical mind so that we can create a safe space for your healing to take place. Because we all store emotions in our body and we store our traumas in our body. And so we can release the emotions that we have attached to that. And then we connect you to your higher self and your higher guidance so that you can gain the higher perspective on your life. So why did you choose to come in with that trauma? Why did
Hmm.
you was the relationships that you chose? It's really so that you can release this victim mindset and put yourself back into a place of empowerment. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about it.
Okay, well, talk about this going from the victim mindset to a place of empowerment. What what separates us? What gets us to this victim space? Because one thing that I've understand is we came into this world empowered. We came into this world whole, loving, all of that. Where does the separation happen? Where we become these victims with trauma and everything that goes on?
Yeah, we're never taught how to feel our emotions, and we're never
Mm,
kind of guidance on how to create the life that we want. And so a lot of people walk through life being taught that we are the victim. A lot of this is conditioning and programming. And that's why it's so beautiful when you start to go through an awakening, when you start to face your traumas, you start to realize that you are more powerful than your trauma. So for me, I let my body be on autopilot my entire life. It was, especially with my addictions really were in the driver's seat. And I remember I had one meditation in specific when I was really close to tapering myself all the way off of methadone. I
mm-hmm.
had and I told myself I was going to meditate for an hour no matter what. And it was the most horrible meditation of my entire life. My brain was doing absolutely everything it could to try to get me to get up and move or just do something. And I told myself, I was like, no, we sat here, we are doing this entire meditation no matter what. And
For an
at the end,
hour.
for an hour, and at the end of it, I just started crying my eyes out. And I feel like that was the moment where like my body and my programming was no longer in control. Like that was the moment that I felt like I had taken back control. And it was such an incredible place of empowerment. And now I want to help other people realize that they are that powerful, that we can start creating healthy boundaries. We can start living a happy, fulfilled life. And this world really becomes so much more magical when we find our empowerment.
Yeah, what you describe, okay, I got a question based on what you were describing with this particular meditation, because you initially said, okay, I'm committing to this hour, and it was the worst meditation because on the surface that's what it seemed like, but it was actually the best. Talk more to us about how some type of cathartic experience where you regain your power can seem bad at the beginning, but it's actually good and beneficial.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I always hear, or I hear all the time that they say meditation is too hard, that they tried it, they don't get it, they couldn't make themselves sit there. Joe Dispenza, oh, he always says that we have to tame the wild beast. So we've never taught how to be in control of our bodies, and we've never taught how to calm our analytical mind. And so a lot of times meditation in the beginning does feel really hard. It's going to be like the last thing that your body wants to do. And most likely your body is going to start fighting you. And that's what moment for me is that was the moment where my body, it was almost like its last fight. And so it was truly doing everything that it possibly could just to get me to get up and move. And just by coming like that, probably that 100 times that I had to in that hour, just coming back and saying, no, this is what we're doing. No, you're no longer in control. No, I know I'm more powerful, that I can stay here and train my body and train my mind. And sometimes that's the actually like that is the kind of resilience you have to have, and that's the kind of discipline that you have to start having.
What, okay, in that circumstance you referred to, how did you maintain the discipline? Was it because you knew there was greater on the other side? What made you say, I'm going to sit here for this hour? I don't care that my body may be saying this, or what made you remain disciplined?
The I think what was the force behind everything that I went through was my addiction. So there came a point in my life where I just knew I couldn't live like that any longer. And so I had to start making healthier choices. And then
Mm-hmm.
I started like teaching myself discipline and meditation. Then I would have these little glimpses that like maybe there was something so much more to this life. Because I grew up atheist. I didn't believe in anything. Like I truly thought that it was just like me, my 3D experience, and my addictions. And so as I started healing, I started getting these little glimpses of maybe there's something more. And then once I did that meditation, I got through that meditation, that was really when I was like, wow, maybe I am the creator of my life. Maybe everything happened, it was because of me, but I chose it. And then after that, um, once you start to feel that empowerment, it just spirals. And this is where once I fully got off of methadone, I was doing breath work to get through the withdrawals. And I went into a full Kundalini awakening. So I was just laying on my floor, laughing and crying at the same time. Felt like I was so connected to everyone and everything. That was my first real moment where I just knew there was something so much more to this life. And it was so beautiful. And so I think especially after going outside of myself my entire life to try to make myself feel better. So I always tried different substances to make myself feel better. I always tried food to make me feel better. I tried all these different material things. I was constantly going outside of myself to make myself feel better. And when I started getting these glimpses of like, whoa, maybe everything that I've been searching for was within myself all along,
Mm.
that it's almost like I got to that, but in the most beautiful way.
That is so wonderful because I have these conversations with clients and with myself all the time too. Like we're often, I should say, seeking outside of ourselves for love, for pleasure, for all of these things. And you said it. You were constantly going outside of yourself. It was the food. It could have been this addictive drug or whatever it was. And then we realize it's been within me all along. So what would you say is in you? What would you say is that which is in you? How would you describe this beauty, this powerful thing? What does it mean to you?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I feel like me to see how truly unlimited my soul is, to see how big my soul is, and to see that I can try to make sense of it with my analytical mind as much as we can, but our soul is actually so big and so powerful that we can't even come to sense of it. But I truly think that it's just the divine essence within myself that allows me to be compassionate, that allows me to want to do the work that I do, that allows me to hold space for people during their healing.
Hmm.
And that is the reason why I survived the addiction that I did.
Yeah. Yeah, you describe that so beautifully. Now, I will say this, Sierra, because a lot of people go through the awakening you did, the healing you did, but they may not turn around and want to assist others. What prompted you to want to become this practitioner and do the quantum healing for other people as well?
When I went through my Kundalini awakening, I started just watching a lot of BQH sessions online and I
Hmm.
fell with it. I just knew that that was it for me. And so I was actually certified in BQH before I even had a session on myself, just because I knew that
What?
that was meant for me. It's when we start to follow our calling, then we just know. We start to follow the path that's set up for us, and I truly feel like BQH was a part of that path. And then also from the addiction that I came from, surviving heroin and fentanyl, most people don't survive that addiction. And so I just felt
Now tell me why do you think that is? Why don't most people survive that addiction?
fentanyl is an entire different beast. It's truly, even as a heroin addict, when I started doing fentanyl, it got, so I could always be a functioning addict. I always had a job. Um, I was living the best that I could for a heroin addict. It actually wasn't until I started doing fentanyl when everything just spiraled out of control, because that drug is so addictive that there's just no way that you can continue your life like that. And then also, it's it's truly just poison. People
Mm.
are overdosing on fentanyl every single day, and it actually just makes me really sad to talk about. But also, I think people need to hear it because that we are in the middle of a fentanyl epidemic. And when I started getting off of fentanyl, I had never even met anybody that had gotten off of fentanyl. I was in and out of so many different programs. Never had I met somebody that got off of fentanyl. So I felt like now if I can just to stand in front of people and say, look, I got through a fentanyl addiction. This is where I'm at. You can do this too. Because I had the memory loss. It was hard for me to just like sit here and speak in front of people without forgetting the words that I was speaking.
Oh,
And
oh my goodness.
yeah, and I have repaired my entire nervous system. I've repaired a lot of, I feel like just my brain cells and the way that my brain functioned. And so if I can just sit in front of people and be the example of just saying, look, I did it and you can do it too, that's all I want.
Okay, what you just shared was so dynamic because I've never heard this. Like you said, because of the the roots, the deep rooted of the healing process you went through, and you also help clients with this. You were able to overcome the addiction of fentanyl, and most people do not. You didn't meet anybody who was able to overcome this addiction. So to me, this speaks highly to the depths of BQH. What would you say to a person, because I know there's somebody watching right now who's also addicted? It could be any type of substance. What would you say to them to start their healing process, to start their recovery?
It's always beautiful to have people in our lives that have gone through these same kind of addictions. So if you, and this is where I think NA and AA, I think that's why they became so powerful when they did, is because it at least gave a space for other addicts to see people that had gone through these addictions. So
Mm-hmm.
look and see how other people did it. Start doing your research of, oh, this person did it. And it starts giving you this feeling of like, I can do this too. This power has to be within me also. And then also just to start doing small changes in your life. Because what's going to happen if you don't start making small changes in your life before you quit those drugs, or even like alcohol, any kind of addiction, even food. Like I realized my greatest addiction after opiates was food. And so if we don't start replacing these habits with healthy things in our life, we're going to relapse. We're going to go back to our exact same patterns. So like that's why I started doing Joe Dispenza and I started meditating before I got off of methadone because it was allowing me the space to start healing, and then it was also giving me the tools that I needed to maintain sobriety. And so
Hmm.
just to start doing like 15-minute meditation, to start learning things about breath work, start trying to live your life in a healthier way, and then work towards sobriety and completely changing your health. Because a lot of our addictions, we have to actually completely become a new person depending on the drug, what you're addicted to, like the level of addiction. Most likely, you're going to have to become an entire new person. So I am not the same Ceirra that I was in that addiction. I've created an entire new personal reality for myself because I've changed the beliefs that I had at that time. I've released the trauma and the emotions from that time. Well, I'm still healing it, but I've released most of it. Um, and I've had to create an entire new reality for myself.
That's so beautiful because I was going to ask you that question as you were talking. Like, do you feel like a new person? And you mentioned that. And to me, you are a new person. You have restructured your cells, you have restructured your nervous system. I even saw on your website you lost weight, correct? So that's another version. That's because didn't you tell me about that? Like, how did the weight loss become part of this new you?
Yeah, so like I said, food has actually been, I would actually say that food is my hardest addiction.
Hmm.
And that is because I can take myself out of the space where I no longer have opiates around me, so I don't have to think about it. But I have every single day. And I was also as a child, I was never really taught how to stop eating. So would binge eat every single time that I ate. And so what was happening is being a drug addict my entire life and going through these addictions, depending on like what drug I was doing at the time, I would lose a lot of weight at once or I would gain a lot of weight at once. And so I'm
Wow.
30 years old, I'm only 5 feet tall. And at this point in my life, my weight has fluctuated about 300 pounds because I would lose 60
What?
and I would gain 60 at a time. And so now I'm at that point where I've lost about 60 pounds again because when I
Mhm.
got off methadone again, I gained 60 pounds since I was no longer using drugs. But this is the first time in my life where I've lost this weight and I don't feel like I'm just going to completely gain it back. This is the first time in my life where I love myself.
Woo! Yay! And you got some love in the chat from Sophia. She says, "Love you, Sierra."
Oh, hi, Sophia. It's so beautiful you're here.
See, you got all kinds of beautiful people, but it's so fascinating. And what's so intriguing to me is you recognize that. You recognize the fluctuation, and you also recognize food is my biggest addiction. Some people wouldn't say that. They're like, "Oh, I'm just eating," or "Oh, but you have the clarity to say, okay, this is something I'm challenged with and I'm going to overcome it. I'm going to face it. I'm not just going to treat it like, oh, it's just whatever. You're willing to conquer it. Just like you said, you're putting yourself in a seat of power as well and not being the victim.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for me, fasting has been incredible just to get past my limiting beliefs. So I never used fasting for weight loss during this. I used just to get through the beliefs that I had as a child because I remember coming home from school when I was like 6 or 7 and thinking that like if I wasn't going to eat dinner, I would die. That's how deeply rooted it was. And I remember when I first started fasting, I would start to have those same feelings of like, how am I going to go 24 hours without eating? I thought that that was
Yeah, we all do on a fast because I've been there. Yeah.
And so for me, fasting, the first time I did a 3-day fast, oh my gosh, I was so proud of myself. That was truly, and then once you do it, you realize that it gets a lot easier after you do it. But that first 3-day fast, day three, all of my emotions came up to the surface again,
I think
and I was
they did.
it was incredible though. It was incredible to put myself in that place of empowerment, knowing that, hey, I'm going to be okay if I don't eat for 3 days. Just come to safety of my own body and loving my body so much that I want it to be as healthy as possible.
Yeah, because you're the first person I've spoken to who's given that as a result of fasting. Like it helped you overcome these limiting beliefs. You were able to actually feel, because I've done all kinds of fasts myself, water fast, dry fast, social media fast. It's like it's not it extends beyond the food, but what you're telling us and the audience is fasting can be used as a tool to assist with your beliefs, to assist with your healing, not just on a weight mechanism. This is for your emotional well-being as well. I love that. I hadn't heard anybody specifically say that attaching the fasting to the limiting beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that you see a lot of people fasting for weight loss, and I'm not judging anybody, but for me personally, I couldn't do that for weight loss. For me, it was like weight loss just had to be was the side effect of
Mm-hmm.
personal healing journey that I was taking when I was fasting. And now I am diving deep into discipline because oh, I know that I can fast. And now I know I can get through that 3-day fast. So now I'm diving deep into discipline. So eating one meal a day and fasting for 22 hours. That is so much more difficult for me than a 3-day fast just because disciplined eating, I was never taught how to stop eating. And so now I'm going through these different type of disciplines, and it's so interesting to see how food is tied into all of my addictions. So when I get disciplined with my eating, all of these things from my addiction start to come back up to the surface. I start having using where I'm like using drugs in my dreams, and it feels
Hmm.
so, and it's so interesting to see how addictive food is.
Yeah, and I can see food as very addictive because it's accessible. And as you mentioned, we haven't been taught how to use food. Like it's so accessible, meaning I can go right now. I don't even have to leave my house and I can get food delivered. I can have Uber Eats, I can have DoorDash, I can have as much as I want. Nobody is putting a limitation and saying, Elmira, you can't eat that, but it's the discipline. Like you said, this is your current path. I have to be disciplined enough to say, is this feeding my body? These are real questions. Like, is this feeding my body? Did you already eat enough today? Are you actually hungry? Like, are you just ordering Uber Eats because you think it's fun? But that's the thing. Food has no limitations, and we have to be disciplined enough to put our own and to use your word, empower ourselves to say, what am I going to do with my food? What is going to be my regimen? What is going to be my routine? Because we have to set it ourselves. Nobody else is putting demands and saying, don't eat that, don't do that. Yeah, it's very it's I don't know what else to say about the food.
Yeah, I think it's just I love myself enough to now I ask my body, is this really what we want?
That's a great question. That is a great question. As we wrap up, Sierra, tell everybody how they can contact you because I know you have a membership as well. You have a lot of stuff going on where people can work with you and they can get on their specific path of healing as well.
Yeah, so my website is awakenedheartbqh.com. And then I do have a membership where I do group hypnosis, BQH channelings. We have a beautiful community over there. It's really people that just want to dive deep into their healing. And that is on Patreon, and it's the Quantum Awakening Portal.
Okay, you all need to go to the Quantum Awakening portal, get in with the membership. Awakened Heart BQH is the website. Also, right here on Instagram, you can reach out to Ceirra with Awakened Heart BQH. She is here to assist you. You've heard her story. And one of the things that I've found phenomenal in this space of healing, because I've talked to a lot of different healers and doing massage therapy for years myself, is the person who has gone through the experience is the best person to assist you. And that's Ceirra. Do you have any final words before we leave?
No, just thank you so much for having me. This was such a beautiful conversation today.
Lovely, lovely. Well, everyone, this conversation just for tidbits is going to be housed right here on Instagram, and it will also be on YouTube for later. But this has been another edition of Heart to Heart, where we do candid conversations with healers, coaches, and leaders. Until next time, you all make it a relaxing day. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.